I grew up in a north suburb of Chicago called Wilmette, Illinois. You might know Wilmette as one of the places where the movie Mean Girls was based off of, so that can give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. I went to school at a Catholic school called St. Francis Xavier. And this is not the nice St. Francis who talked to animals and was friendly and cool. No. This was the one who tried to colonize Asia. Catholic school did not make me feel closer to God. It wasn't good for my academics or anything like that. In fact, I feel like the only good thing it did for me was give me a nice thick skin. This school and I, we didn't get along. The general consensus was that if you didn't make an attempt to be exactly like everyone else, you weren't welcome. And I was a big weirdo, so things didn't work out too well for me. Let me give you a little bit of context about some of the things these kids would say. Their favorite insults were calling people Asian or Mexican. And FYI, every single kid in my class was white. Every single one. There were only a handful of non-white kids in the whole school. We had a nice girl who was Muslim join our class for a little bit until she got scared away. Now, I was not necessarily any better than these kids. I wanted to fit in too. And so when Sarah moved from Chicago and came to our school in second grade, I joined in on the fun of making fun of them and isolating them. The biggest infraction that they had was that they wore the uniform shorts one day instead of the uniform skirt, and that was enough for them to be bullied and have zero friends. Of course, by the end of second grade, we actually became pretty good friends. I remember one day I was sitting on the blacktop at recess playing Pokemon Blue on my Gameboy Color. And Sarah came up to me and asked if I wanted to trade Pokemon. And I said, sure, I've got a connector cable, why not? And so they traded me a Butterfree and I traded them, I don't know, something probably terrible, so shifty like that back then. And we became friends. And by the end of third grade, we were best friends. And in fourth grade, they wised up and went to a new school. And in fourth grade, I realized I had no friends left. Fifth grade was worse. Fifth grade didn't even compare to sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. In fifth grade, I actually really liked my teacher, Miss Erickson. She was cool, supportive, nice. We did cool physics experiments and she read to us. Much better than Mrs. Lee, who was my fourth grade teacher who nearly failed me in spelling because she had my classmate George dictate a spelling test to me. And he said Kentucket instead of Connecticut. And I was like, don't you mean Connecticut? And he said, no, Kentucket. So I goddamn spelled Kentucket, but it was actually Connecticut, so I got it wrong. But fifth grade wasn't good. Fifth grade was when I started to develop a personality of all my own, and my classmates did not like that personality. I started liking anime and punk music and video games, and that was gross to them. To be fair, I was weird about it. I get it. I got a little too into everything. But fifth grade was also when kids started to like each other. Like each other. There was a rumor that Julia kissed Johnny and everything. Of course, that meant there was a rumor that I had kissed John Ostrom under the table in the library in first grade, which wasn't true. And when kids start to like each other, someone has to be the gross one. So that was me. The kids invented a really super ultra fun game called the Jenny disease. It was kind of like Cooties or the Cheese Touch if you've read Diary of a Wimpy Kid. If someone touched me or bumped into me or touched something that I had touched, they got the Jenny disease. And the only way you could get rid of it was to tag someone else and declare that they now had the Jenny disease. Well, it started to get pretty bad. I was getting a little tired of kids backing up against the wall as I passed by and being totally disgusted by my presence, pushing people into me so that they would get it. I even started to leech beyond my grade, so older and younger kids were doing it too. I was a little famous for being patient zero of a school-wide pandemic. But it was rough. So I did what adults tell you to do when you're being picked on, and I told the teacher. One day, Miss Erickson had us all sit down during a time when we would normally have some free time so that she could talk to us about it. The room went silent. There was fear in the air. The kids felt angry at me, and I had tears in my eyes for being nervous. I clutched the sides of my desk and grit my teeth. This was going to make it worse. I was sure I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just sucked it up. But then the door opened. Christian stood dumbstruck at the door. Whoa, what's going on? He said, and everyone shouted, the Jenny disease! And he recoiled and shouted, what? I don't have it! And the room burst out in laughter. I put my head down on my desk. I was mortified. And I laughed. Even I had to admit that it was a funny situation. But after that, things certainly didn't get better. And instead of getting sad, I got angry. And when you combine that with the kid who's into anime and likes wolves a little more than is good for her, you get that very strange kid who tries to undermine the uniform by wearing cat ears and growls at people when they say anything to her. I honestly don't blame kids for not liking me. But I don't blame me for not liking them either. They were all racist assholes. Lucky for me, finally, in 8th grade, I got my revenge. It was small, but powerful. Art class was just about the only respite in my day. Something finally that I was good at, where I could express myself just a little bit in a school that really stifled me and that I really hated. Well, one day we had a sub, so we could either work on our projects or work with clay. I was painting on a canvas, and Harry, one of the worst kids to me in class, sat across the room. And he started throwing little balls of clay at me. I tried to ignore it, but he kept going. Thunk. Little balls of clay hit the back of my canvas. Thunk. I grit my teeth. Thunk. Angry tears sparked in my eyes. Thunk. I took a deep breath. Thunk. Maeve, bless her heart until the end of time, yelled at him to stop. Thunk. 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 Splat! The clay started landing in my paint. Splat! Splat! I stood up. I grabbed a paint-covered clay ball. I calmly walked across the room. I walked to Harry. He cowered. I took that little ball of clay and I slowly, deliberately smushed it into his shirt. I ground it in. I made sure that it would stain. I turned back to my seat. The sub asked me what had happened, and I ignored her. I went back to my painting. Tears fell from my eyes, and I smiled.